Hey guys, Savage Joy with Real Progressives. Thank you for joining me on a Thursday. I know it's kind of my off night, and I lost my guest. Um, that's never happened. Oh my. And he's back. Tonight I am joined by independent candidate from Tennessee, Congressional District 2, Mr. Marc Whitmire. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark is with the brand new Congress. That's how I found him. He was on the little like pamphlet thing. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me on. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. We were talking a little bit prior about voting regulations and things like that. So we want to get into that. The interesting thing is now Mark is an independent, so he's not part of the primary today. However, their primary is today. So you were actually out at the polls. Was there a good turnout? What was it like?
Yeah, it was during the daytime. It was kind of slow, which we expect. People are at work. As the evening went on, the rain died off. It was pouring down rain all day. People started showing up quite a bit, which I'm really happy for, because the way the state of politics in this country is going now, a lot of people are shutting down. People that don't have connections to groups like you all. To activist progressive groups, people who are just out there floating around, doing their jobs, coming home, taking care of the kids. They see all this stuff on the news. They think, what's the point, right? Why turn out? And so we've been fearing a lower voter turnout. The reports so far have been that it's about on par with usual, which is great, because I was really concerned. But yeah, in the evening, man, people are coming out, and I was catching them as they come out of the polls, which they thought was odd, because they're like, man, I can't vote for you. Like, I just voted. And I was like, hey, I'm not on this until November. So I ran into a lot of good people that are really happy to have an alternative to what's going on right now, because people are sick of it. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're to the right or if you're to the left, if you're for Trump, if you're against him. It's not even about Trump. It's about the fact that politics in this country don't work anymore. They don't work for normal people. And so people say, what's the point, right? And, I think it all boils down to, on my website, when I first started it up, on the little about me section, I wrote down there, look, I'm just trying to give people something to vote for instead of something to vote against. And that's what it comes down to. And that's why I'm with Brand New Congress, because every one of our candidates, even if people don't agree with what we stand for, which I'm in the South, so it's a little bit harder to sell sometimes with Medicare for all and everything. But they agree with the fact that we don't take corporate money, that we want to get money out of politics, and we want to do what's best for Americans so that we can invest in our country again. And that we can actually see the growth that we used to have, right? We used to be the best in the country at everything. And now we're like 34th in healthcare and 38th in education. And the only thing that we're at the forefront is in selling weapons to countries all around the globe. It's, selling war, selling death. And that's not a good thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So what actually inspired you to take this extra step and register to run for Congress?
Yeah, well, I mean, the kind of the final thing that really led me to actually run was whenever I found out about Paula Jean Swearingen over in West Virginia that was running against Joe Manchin and Brand New Congress. And so I wound up writing him a letter, and I was like, look, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. I want to run. I want to run with you guys. And if you'll have me, I'm here. And they actually, all the candidates voted, and they approved me. And so that's how I actually got to that point. Now, prior to that, I've been active politically for about a decade at the federal level. I would, call representatives, mostly write letters, things like that, because federal level, you can't really be face to face with the representatives. And the number one problem I found was money in politics. Every issue I was addressing, it was influenced by big money in politics. So I started working for Wolfpack. I still had a full-time job, so I did it, on the side. And so I would sit down with state-level representatives and try to get them to call for an Article 5 convention of the states to reverse Citizens United, right? Nobody likes corruption. Nobody likes money in politics. And the legislators would agree with me, but they wouldn't introduce the resolution. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. 90% of Americans want money out of politics. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Like, we want our voice to be heard, and people can't hear it with all this money. and you won't introduce this resolution. He's like, oh, sorry, man, you should go talk to this guy. And so I had legislators that wouldn't legislate. So I finally said, hey, I've got to run. And at that point, I didn't think it was really feasible. This was before Trump was in. And after Trump gets elected, we've got somebody who's never been in elected office, never really been politically advocating for anything, never been in the military. That all of a sudden he's the president of the United States. And I think, okay, there's such disillusionment and disenfranchisement amongst our people that they let somebody like Donald Trump get in. It's not even about Trump to me. It's about the feeling in this nation that there is no solution with the current establishment politicians. And then I thought, you know what, if he can get in, I can at least give this a shot. And then that's whenever I found Brand New Congress, and it just kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. Right on. Yeah, it's interesting how many people are inspired who say they never would have run until this. It's really fascinating to me that you say that you've been active for about 10 years, because you told me that you've actually been a Republican most of your life. And that really surprised me, because like I look at your platform and I'm like, okay, that's not very Republican. Now I have interviewed a few Republicans, but they were running as like an old school Republican, you know what I mean? Like the still for the people and everything, or running that way strategically. So you stated that you actually did want to run Republican, but they weren't really having it because of your platform. Is that just because of you live in a very Republican district, or what was your thought process?
Gotcha. You raise a good point with other people who are trying to run old school Republican. Rob Briersey, one of our candidates in Arkansas.
I had him. Yep.
Oh God, I love Rob, man. And he's the one of the last people I talked to before I started running, and he was in the same position, right? Back in the day, the Republican Party was totally different. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt fought for workers' rights. He was going to nationalize the coal industry because the bosses and labor couldn't agree, and Americans were freezing to death because coal was the only source of heat we had at that point in time. He saved 231 million acres of land for public use. He stood up for people. In 1958 or 59, part of the Republican Party platform was equal work for equal pay, right? So the old Republican Party line was, yes, pro-business, but they realized that for the businesses to thrive, the people had to thrive. And then at some point, money got involved, and the Southern strategy happened, and that changed a lot of stuff, and that's where we saw everything just kind of go downhill. So I wanted to help bring it back to the old school Republican Party, right? And the problem is, in my district, it's been nothing but Republicans in this seat since 1855. The Democratic Party didn't even exist at that point. Before that, we had a Whig in office, if that puts it into perspective.
Wow.
So, Democrats are behind by 90 to 140,000 votes, and honestly, I don't really like the DNC either. The DNC party establishment. Democrats are fine, right? So I had been a lifelong Republican. The first political event I ever went to was George H.W. Bush's rallies before he ever even got in. I remember he shook my hand. I think I was like very young at the time, so I could be wrong, but I was really close to him, and I remember looking up and going, "Hey, this is a good guy." And he wasn't necessarily the best in office, but I wanted to stay true to my heritage and everything. My views had changed because I looked into the policies directly, which I used to believe that social safety nets were a bad thing and were a drain on society. And then whenever I went to the U.S. Army, I met people who wouldn't be alive without food stamps, who did not have the opportunities that I did. And so I thought, to be true to myself, I've got to take part in this to help give them opportunities to let them succeed. You can't tell somebody to pull themselves up by the bootstraps if they don't have any bootstraps. And that's the point where a lot of people are. So I was going to run as a Republican, and the Republican Party, which is a private entity, technically, so they can do as they please, in this state have something called the bona fide Republican rule, where it has a bunch of stipulations to where you can kick anybody off the ballot you don't like. There was a guy who was very right-wing who was kicked off the ballot because he didn't approve of what Trump was doing. I mean, this guy was probably like a Ted Cruz in terms of ideology, so really right-wing, but they didn't like him because he didn't like Trump, so boom, he's gone. So getting me off the ballot wouldn't be very hard for them, obviously, and they're sneaky about it. The way it happens generally is you don't know that you've been challenged until after you've been challenged. And once you've been challenged, They can actually remove you from the ballot after the date to turn in your petition. I know that's kind of getting into the nitty gritty, but what happens is they say you can run as an independent, but you can't refile. So I got at the head of it, and I said, okay, I'm going to run as independent. It's going to make it harder for me, but it fits my belief system, you know. Senator Sanders, obviously independent, so I was like, hey, we'll give this a shot. And so far, I've had a really positive response, even from a lot of Republicans who they don't agree with me potentially being removed from the ballot. They think that the people should decide, the voters should decide. It's a publicly funded election. Why do we have a party choosing the candidates beforehand? Because once they have chosen somebody, the Republicans usually going to get elected here, right? So if they pick a bad representative to run and they don't let good people run, that's what the problem is in this country. They can't even vote for good people. So I tried to fight against it. I was going to lose this one. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything legally we could do. We looked into it. So here I am as an independent. I'm hoping a lot of people can relate to that. And so far, I've had a really, really positive response.
Absolutely. I'm a very proud independent, but I'm in Pennsylvania. So we have closed primaries. So it's a total pain in the ass. Like anytime you want to vote, you know, it's like you have 30 days to register like who you want to vote for, but then the day after you vote, you're like, I feel dirty. I don't want to be a Democrat anymore. And you go right back to independent. So yeah, it's crazy the way that they have it set up, and it is all by design. So independents are actually the largest voting bloc now. There's like 43% of us. So it only makes sense that you would run independent and that people would be embracing it. So that's pretty amazing. What are some of the things that you hear from people when you phone bank or talk to them at events? What things do you hear? What are their main concerns?
Gotcha. Around here, even though it's the South, still healthcare, right? Tennessee didn't take the Medicaid expansion, and that hurts people. I don't have healthcare right now because starting up the business, I don't have the extra money to get it. And it's like $7,000 a year for me. I'm 35, never had any health problems, right? I'm in good health, $7,000 a year. That's ridiculous. And I'm not the only one. Everybody has issues with healthcare. So corruption in politics is number one. I don't care where people lie on the spectrum of Republican or Democrat. Everybody cares about that. That one comes up on its own. If it doesn't, I bring it up. That's usually first thing I tell them, hey, I'm with a group that's running without corporate money. So that's a big one. And everybody pretty much seems to relate, hey, the reason we don't have good healthcare is because all the money in politics, the $500 million that the healthcare industry and insurance companies and everything put into into lobbying last year alone. People see that. People know that causes the problem. So healthcare and corruption are the two biggest. A living wage is actually next in line, which I always thought that would be kind of a hard sell in more of a red area like this. But the thing is, people see things that impact them personally. And here we've got a low cost of living, so that's good. The problem is our pay is in the gutter. Our median income around here is, I think, around 36,000 or so. And, you know, so we fall within that percentage of Americans. I think it's 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. It would bankrupt them. They'd have to sell something or borrow money.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
And but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, people see that. They don't make a lot of money, you know, and so they want wages to be higher. And I give them a clear path to that, you know. So those are the big ones. Endless war comes up a lot too. People here support the veterans a lot, but they don't think that we need to be over in the Middle East involved in all these issues. And I agree. As a veteran, what I've seen, the people I lost, the people I met that had just suffered terrible loss over there. Nobody has a good reason for us to be there anymore. We're just wasting money. We're wasting money. We're wasting lives. Absolutely.
What did you do in the military?
I was a biomedical technician. So the same thing I do on the civilian side. It was a really neat job because a lot of people will get out of the Army from active duty and all they can do is become police or security officers. I received training from the top biomedical school in the world. The DoD biomedical school is incredible. So 2 weeks out, I had a job lined up with great benefits, great pay. And so I was really lucky. when it came to that. A lot of veterans get out. I mean, everybody knows we have a huge problem with veteran homelessness in this country, because of the fact that they send people off to war. They come back damaged, usually mental problems that you can't see. They don't present themselves, so they can't hold down a job. A lot of people turn to substance abuse and everything else. I was very, very lucky, and so I advocate for training programs in the military to help people transition out of the military. They can reclassify within the military before they get out. Like if you become a medic in the military, when you get out, you can have a job as an EMT automatically, and you can transition to RN or LPN from that very quickly. And we need a lot of nurses in this country. One of my volunteers is a nurse, and she was telling me about the shortages they have. And I think that we can use our military personnel as they leave active duty to transition into the positions in life, in our economy that aren't filled properly, like nursing, like teaching. We have people that get trained for welding, working on vehicles, all sorts of things, right? So I think we should turn the focus to that, and that'll help a lot of people. Because, for almost a decade, I worked in healthcare, made great money at it. I felt like I lost my soul working for a huge corporation, though. I didn't feel like I was doing good for the country, which is what led me to where I am now. We were hoping to flip houses and make them affordable in lower socioeconomic status areas, which is what we're doing right now. So just being part of the solution, I guess, is what drives
me. Guys, I work in healthcare, so that was a jab at me. No, I'm just kidding.
No, if you work with the people, you're good. I was turning profits for a big company, I mean, what I did helped people too, but it's just, it comes at you from every direction, and after a while it wears you down, and you ask yourself, can I do this for the rest of my life? And for me, it's more than just a paycheck. Nurses that deal directly with people, that's a little bit different. I would work on the equipment that would help people in surgery. The job still felt good. I liked the job. I liked my coworkers, but yeah, just, I'd look at the amount of money that this corporation's getting and the amount of money they pour into lobbying and what happens internally. It's just a lot of mess. I didn't like it anymore. So I'm pretty happy where we're at now, though.
That's awesome. So you kind of sound like you may be on the spectrum of federal job guarantee. Do you support that?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Okay.
I can use a really good example. I'll try to be short. I know I'm really long-winded. But
we support that here. So yeah. That's why I was like, please tell me you want that.
I support a federal jobs program. And, a lot of people, whenever we bring up things like Medicare for all, tuition-free education, they say, how are you going to pay for that? And that drives me insane. But there's so many good options. For instance, a federal jobs program will allow us to take care of infrastructure that is currently, divvied out to private corporations. Well, whenever we pay a corporation to do something, they've got a profit rolled into that automatically. So we could do it ourselves for less. So if we have people that go and pick up garbage and recycling instead of contracting a corporation to do it, we can do it cheaper. If we have a road department, instead of hiring some other entity to take care of that, we can have people to fix the roads and the infrastructure. When it comes to private utility companies, private cable companies, we can offer public broadband. We can offer, water, electricity. We already have the infrastructure. We can have individuals take care of that. So if you have people that don't have a lot of training and don't have the money to go back to school, and maybe we don't have the money to provide the education just yet, which we do, don't get me wrong, we have it, we're just spending it in other areas. Then we can save money through a federal jobs program. We can cut down on unemployment. We can offer people benefits. This is like with the New Deal. This is how they rebuilt America. This is how they helped out everybody to rise together. And a federal jobs program is the way to that. I believe that one way that, there's a lot of people in my area that they say, yeah, tuition-free education is great. Medicare for all is great, but they don't want somebody to get something for nothing. And that's something that you can't change about someone. It's intrinsically, that's how they look at it. So what I say is, hey, what if we have a federal jobs program and these people come and work for America, and that's how they earn their way? Maybe we expand AmeriCorps, right? We have people that get out of high school. I went straight to college. I should have taken a couple of years off because, everybody, when you're young and you're crazy, right, you need to work some things out. Had I gone from high school and worked, say, for 2 years in AmeriCorps, or went straight to the military and then came out and went to college, you can turn to those people that say, well, they didn't earn it, and say, yes, they did. Look, they picked up your garbage for 2 years. They went into the military for 2 years. And we can say that with anything in the federal jobs program. That also ties into paying back student loans. The Trump administration, through their tax cuts, took away a lot of the benefits of people that wanted to get their student loans forgiven by working in government for, I believe it was 7 years, and then they would get their loans forgiven. That's a great program. We need things like that, because the way I look at our economy, we're a mixed economy. We have socialist programs, we have capitalistic programs. Anything that involves a necessity for life, electricity, water, healthcare, things like that, we need to have public programs for that. And we need to employ U.S. citizens publicly so that we can actually have control over what happens, and everything's going to be transparent, and we don't have this issue with corporations trying to, rig the rules in their favor so they can make more money, and then us taxpayers have to foot the bill for that, So yeah, federal jobs program all the way, buddy.
And also the good thing about that is it does take away so much homelessness, because people are on the street who can't find jobs. And as far as when you talk about a living wage, I know you said the cost of living there isn't too high. What is a living wage to you? What are you fight for 15, or do you want higher than that?
Yeah, well, ideally as high as possible, right? But the economy can only support a certain degree. So I support the $15 minimum wage, and here's why. Nick Hanauer, I don't know if you know who he is or not. He was an investor in Amazon, one of the first investors. He's a billionaire. He's a venture capitalist, but he's also one of the guys that was behind the Fight for 15 in Seattle. And so I've read a lot of his works, and he raises a lot of good points. For instance, if our minimum wage kept up with inflation, it would be, I think, $10.25 or $10.50. If it kept up with productivity, the minimum wage in this country would be $22 an hour. And so they said 15's in the middle. So it's a good compromise, right? It's not enough to where everybody's going to be driving brand new cars and all that stuff, but it's enough to get by. It's enough to actually be able to provide for your family without working 2 and 3 jobs. I'd like to see it higher, but what I think would happen is this. In Seattle, I don't know if you know or not, but they're tiering up to the $15 an hour minimum wage. And what that's done is somebody that was making $7.25 an hour working 2 jobs says, wait a minute, I can make $15 an hour, work half as much and make the same money. So people would quit their job, one of their jobs, excuse me. And that would open up a position for someone who's unemployed. So the unemployment rate went from, I think, 4.6 to 2.5% in Seattle, because people would quit the jobs they didn't like and just work the one job. So other people would get hired on. So what that did is it created a labor shortage. So then employers had to start competing for labor, which is great, because that's when we win. So now you can be a Jimmy John's delivery driver for sandwiches, and they were offering $19 an hour plus tips. So if we get it to $15 an hour and everybody's making more money, they're going to spend that money in the economy. They're going to buy new clothes for their kids. They're going to fix their houses, hopefully make them more energy efficient, right? Because that'll save them money in the long run, and it'll help the environment. But people spend that money, okay? Businesses make more money. And then if there's a labor shortage, businesses have more money on hand. They don't have enough workers. They got to pay people more. That's when the free market can actually work. The free market needs regulation to keep everything within bounds of reason. And then once we have, that's where they're actually having to fight for our labor instead of us having to fight for a job, right? They're going to have to pay us more anyway. So it's a $15 minimum wage, but it doesn't matter, because they got to pay more than that to get someone good employed. And recently, I just posted about this on my Twitter and Facebook. There was a study done recently by, I don't remember the people's names, but they worked, I believe, for the Department of Labor and Statistics, or the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And they had access to all sorts of information that people that research the minimum wage don't have. So they looked back at Social Security, intake, what people paid in Social Security, allowed them to track wages. They could track people when they moved instead of just looking at one area. And what they found is in areas that the minimum wage was raised, I believe 26 or 29 states, their minimum wage is above the federal minimum wage. And they found that people that made federal minimum wage and went into a state that the minimum wage was higher, that not only did their wages go up, but what they found is the people above them, management, who were already making more than minimum wage, eventually, because the people lower on the totem pole, they went up. Well, management said, wait a minute, we should be making more money. So eventually management, their pay after a 5-year period kept going up, right? And the people that came in at minimum wage, which would be say $11 in some areas. They liked their jobs, so instead of flip-flopping around jobs, they stayed in the job. So they progressed and they rose as well. And whenever we get higher pay, that's what happens. People stay at jobs more. The management have to make more to compensate. It's everybody wins. And this whole talking point about, which I used to believe, by the way, about if we pay the employees more, then we have to fire people because the business can't afford more workers. That's such BS. And, Nick Hanauer helped me a lot with that, looking into it, the way he broke things down. And I had never, whenever I was really far to the right as a Republican, I never looked any further than that. On the surface, it makes sense, right? You got to pay your workers more. You can't hire as many people. Just like it made sense to people for a long time that the earth was flat and that the sun revolved around the earth. Because whenever you look up and you see the sun going through the sky, you think, oh, obviously, right? We don't know how it works, but we do see the examples of what happens in places like Seattle where they have higher wages, and in a lot of the other countries in Europe where they have higher wages. And people here say, oh, geez, look, you can't make $10 million a year if you live in the Netherlands. Yeah, but if the average wage, and I don't know what the average wage is there because I have so many numbers in here, but if the average wage is $80,000 for everybody, but here it's $30,000, you're much better off on the whole that way. So, yeah, I absolutely support a $15 minimum wage. I think it'll take off from there. We'll see a ton of growth. Businesses will make more money. People will be a lot happier. And with that, if we have Medicare for all, tuition-free education, and higher wages, people are going to be happier. They're going to be more successful. They're going to have the equal opportunity to succeed. And what makes me so happy about that is, the Knoxville budget here I recently looked at. We have $93 million that we spend on police every year, and our budget's like $400 million. It's a huge, huge chunk. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If we invest in our people and everybody does better, you don't see rich people knocking off liquor stores and breaking into houses because they have enough. So once we get these good programs instituted in our society, everybody comes up together, right? Everybody comes up together. Everybody's happier. There's less stress. There's going to be less crime. We spend less money on policing and everything else. It's a great program. And, I think that this platform is only going to gain momentum from here. And, I believe once our generation gets more into Congress, right now, the millennial generation, there's only 12 representatives in U.S. Congress out of 535. We're the biggest living generation, largest voting bloc now. 25% of the population, we only have 12 people representing us. Once we get more people in, we're going to see these problems go away. We're going to be able to actually tackle this stuff head on. And I can't wait. I was so happy whenever Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won against Joe Crowley. She's one of our candidates. I met her last November in Washington, D.C. whenever we had a brand new summit. I met all the candidates there. It was great, meeting all them because they're the future. And I'm so proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, I've had a bunch of the BNC people. I did have Alexandria on, and Lindsay and a bunch of them. Alexandria was actually, I didn't know who she was in December, and I was asked to speak at an event, and she was a speaker there too. And I was like, okay, this girl has fire. I don't know what's going to happen, but she has fire. She's real. And I was just like, she makes me just want to get up and like do something, So I was impressed. But how amazing did that turn out though? And then Joe Crowley, that great guy, he's now trying to stifle her win by going third party, even though I thought third parties were, dead ends, but apparently not now. What, as far as the people you're running against, I mean, today we don't know the results yet, obviously, but as far as of today, how many Democrats and how many Republicans are running in your district?
You mean just for the seat, or?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We had 2 people on the Democratic side, and it's fluctuated on the Republican. We had as many as 13 at one point, and it kind of got whittled down. Now we have about 9. And I think 7 that is pretty close. There's 2 front runners for the most part, but 9 or so total. So there's quite a bit in there. And this seat has been held by one family since 1965, actually. And the current representative, Jimmy Duncan, has been in since 1988. So he's been in for 30 years, and he's stepping down this year. So there's no incumbent. So since it's an open seat, it opens stuff up a lot. So we saw an influx of a lot of people. Plus, with the blue wave and everything. In this area, it's very, very conservative, very, very red. So I don't know how much of an effect it'll have. Democrats for the seat are down typically 90 to 140,000 votes. So that's big, right? That's a lot. But there's been a lot of enthusiasm, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, we've got quite a few people in this race.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, in Pennsylvania, we did have brothers who, two Democratic socialists, actually knocked out of their positions of like decades.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a mini Alexandria, two of them in PA. So it can happen. That's rad though. Is there anyone running green or anything, or it would just be you, one Dem, and one Republican?
Yes. We don't have a Green Party. We've had Green Party people run in the past. This time around, we don't. We have someone in the Libertarian Party, which they'll still be identified as an independent because Tennessee won't allow the Green Party or the Libertarian Party on the ballot. They have to get something crazy like 33,900 and some signatures to get on the ballot. And then after that, our Tennessee General Assembly has been arguing, oh, it's too expensive to put a Green Party or a Libertarian on the ballot because it's going to cost $3 million to add an L or a G beside their name. And it's like, come on, they just don't want the competition. The Libertarian Party around here has some steam behind them, and the Green Party not as much, just due to the area that we're in. And they don't want the competition. That's it. They're scared of competition. With me, we have open primaries. So their fear with me was a lot of Democrats were getting energized about my campaign because they're like, wait a minute, we know the Republicans always win. So if the Democrats could have turned enough people out in the Republican primary to vote for me, and I would have won the primary, it would have been a done deal, as far as the general election. So that's why they were trying to keep me out. So that's kind of gives you a little bit of an idea into this area, the politics and everything. Yeah, as far as candidates, there's actually 4 independent candidates on the ballot. One is no longer running. The other one, I've seen him at a couple forums. He's a nice guy, but there's no outreach. Nobody knows who he is, so it's kind of almost like a token candidate. And that's not taking anything away from him. Again, he's a really nice guy, but he doesn't have any collaboration or anything built up. And then the Libertarian Party candidate, who he's run, I believe, 3 or 4 times for this seat. He consistently gets about 3,500 to 4,000 votes or so from Libertarian people who know who he is. But other than that, we're looking to energize a huge portion of the base here. I think I mentioned earlier that in 2016 we had 9% voter turnout in the primaries for my district, and for the general, I think it was around 60% turnout or so, maybe. But in midterm years, we get 30-40% turnout in the actual general election. And so there's a really, really large number of people to play with. We could, if we had the exposure, we could sweep it. I know that we could. I've said this many times before. If I could talk to every single voter who's going to be voting in this election, I know I'd win. But because there's so much money involved in elections now, we can't get the exposure. It's tough, right? So if something happens, if I can make something happen like Alex did up in the Bronx, I think we can take this down. I think we can win this, and I'm super excited about it.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. I mean, there's a number of candidates. I had Sarah Smith on. She's blowing up. I think she might be able to take it. And that's why it's so great to have organizations like Brand New Congress, because they promote for you in some ways. You don't have to, and the internet is the best thing to happen to candidates, really. In your state, do you have to pay a fee to get on the ballot?
No, thankfully we don't. I know, like Rob Ryerson, how I mentioned him earlier, the Republican Party here kept me out because they literally can just veto someone and kick them off the ballot. For Rob, he had to spend $15,000 to get on the ballot. That's insane. Like, that's not democracy. That's not $15,000. But yeah, luckily here in Tennessee, it's relatively easy to get on as an independent or a Democrat. Democrats here let anybody run because, the party doesn't have as much exposure. They don't have as much coverage, so they let anybody run. And the Republican Party, for a time, anybody could get on. Then they introduced this bona fide Republican rule to where they could kick anybody off. But yeah, we have fairly easy ballot access. I'd have 25 signatures. I wound up getting 70-something to fill the paper up just in case somebody's information was wrong. But yeah, it was pretty simple. I know Alex had, I think, 5,000 she got or had to get. Anthony Clark, one of our other candidates, he had to get a ton of signatures, and the people of the Democratic establishment sued his campaign, trying to like challenge the signatures, I believe, trying to keep him off the ballot. So ballot access has been a problem across the country. I know Sarah's had issues up in Washington with getting access to the van. You know, it's ridiculous. They tell us that we need to participate more, but then whenever we want to participate, they tell us to go away. So, you know, it's that kind of stuff really irks me. Seeing it firsthand. I haven't gotten it as bad, with the exception of getting, you know, pushed off the Republican ballot. But in some areas where Democrats are running as Democrats, espousing things that other Democrats support, and they get nothing but slack from the DNC. Man, it's the same reason that Hillary lost the election. Like she wasn't a good candidate. There was too much corruption. Too many people didn't like her. She just didn't energize anybody. She didn't excite anybody. Cori Bush, one of our candidates out in St. Louis, she excites people. Sarah, she excites people. Alex, she excites people. Charles Richardson down in Florida, he excites people. Mike Hepburn, he excites people, right? People get up about these people. They want to come out. They want to show up to vote. The DNC should be going along with that, but they're not. They're fighting people because they get paid off by the same people the GOP does. It's just not quite as obvious. To normal people, I use that word loosely, like we're super involved, so we see it. But most of the country, they get off work, they want to go home, eat dinner, watch a little bit of TV, play with the kids, and go to bed, and they don't have time to dig into it like we do. We need people like yourself, like Sarah, like everybody else, right, to take part and to dig in and to call this stuff out for what it is. And I think with the internet, the connection that we have now, people are starting to wake up to it. They're seeing it, and we're starting to turn stuff around. It's going to take a while, but it's happening.
It is. I get kind of impatient sometimes. I'm not going to lie. I want it to change now. I'm just scanning the comments. Stephen, I'm not really sure what you're saying. Nobody said that libertarians are progressives. Mark's not a libertarian. So
I've met libertarians that support Medicare for all. I've met libertarians that wanted to ban all guns, but I've also met libertarians that wanted fully automatic weapons to be available to people and believe that we don't need any sort of government health care or health program like Medicare at all. So libertarians seem to be all over the spectrum. It's not a bad thing. The good thing about the Libertarian Party is when I spoke at a libertarian meeting, they challenged a lot of the things I stand for, and it made me think, right? The Libertarian Party is really good at being devil's advocate, and they have some good ideas. Like, I'm a progressive, but that doesn't mean I don't want to work with other people, you know? The Libertarian Party, I think, can offer good things into the discussion because everything has to be a compromise. We have to take what's best for the country. We all want to get to the same point. We just have different ways of getting there. I've seen some libertarian people that are pretty progressive, and I've seen some that want zero government at all. So they seem to be all over the spectrum. But no, you know, generally speaking, I wouldn't call the Libertarian Party progressive. That wouldn't be a term I'd necessarily identify.
My litmus test, like my brain, when someone says progressive, the first thing is, do they take corporate money? That's my first thing. And, you know, a lot of people aren't doing their due diligence with candidates. And they're saying, the candidates are saying I'm progressive, and they're taking that at face value. But there's things, you know, I've definitely gone to Open Secrets and stuff like that, and you find out that these progressive people are taking money from Soros, and I won't say her name, but she won, and everybody's flipping their shit about her like she's so amazing, and I'm like, yeah, she took a bunch of money from Soros. So it's really important that we actually research these people who say they're progressive. I digress. So as far as getting people activated to get out and vote, there are so many people who feel defeated. There is, you know, there's so much going on where people are saying, you know, our votes don't count. In 2016, they stole our votes. They actually, completely cheated us. That's why we have Trump. And why should we vote now? What's the point? So what is your message when these people, say these things to you?
Yeah. My message is pretty simple. It's like, look, everybody sees the corruption. I've never had anybody challenge that one. And so I just tell them, I'm like, look, what's going on right now? It does disenfranchise people. For a long time, I wasn't the best voter, right? I didn't feel that there was anything to vote for. And I tell the people, I'm like, look, I'm one person, but I'm not the only one that feels this way. And so if everybody that feels this way doesn't vote, then we get things like the 9% voter turnout that we had. And keep in mind, that's registered voters. So 4.5%, 5% of the voters or of the people in my district decided the outcome of the election. So when you look at these numbers and you tell somebody, if you don't vote, you're just one person. But if 10,000 of you don't vote, that's enough to swing an election in this district. And then once we get good people in there, you're going to see things start to change. It took us a long time to get here. It's going to take us a while to fix this. So, we've got to give somebody something to have faith in again, right? And whenever they see progressives that don't take money from these corporations, that don't let the lobbyists and the big money interests sway their view, we're going to get something happening. And, a lot of people say, oh, geez, Alex may get in or Alexandria may get in, but she's not going to be able to make a difference on her own. And to that, I'll just say, look, maybe not at first. But here's the thing. The tax cut bill, which only 27% of Americans supported, right, which got passed, it passed 51 to 49. I'm like, okay, so I know most of us are running for the House. If we were running for Senate and we had two independent thinking politicians who are not bought off, it would have failed 51 to 49. So we can make a difference. And whenever you tell people that, it kind of opens their eyes a bit, and they see that, this is going to come incrementally. It's going to take a while. This isn't going to happen in 2018. It's probably not even going to happen maybe in 2020 whenever we get a new president, hopefully Senator Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, somebody progressive and good, right? Get somebody in there. Yeah. Whenever I look back through history and I see things that had they been different, people may not feel the way they do now. One of my favorite politicians, my favorite president was Teddy Roosevelt. One of my favorite politicians was Robert Kennedy. And, he went from being a war hawk to really trying to support poor people in this country. And had he not been assassinated, had he actually become president, this nation would be our landscape would be completely different, right? Had Bernie gotten through the primary, which he should have, every poll indicated he would have killed Trump, right? Trump's one of the worst politicians we've ever had, but one of the least popular politicians was against him. That's a problem. Had Robert Kennedy gotten in, had Bernie gotten in, things would be really, really different. But they didn't. It didn't go that way, but we've got to keep on trying because the people who are in power, it's easy for them, man. They're already sitting up there. They've got the silver spoon firmly in hand. They're not going anywhere, and all they have to do is just throw the money out. It's easy for them. For us, it's not as easy. So we've got to keep it up, and we're going to see progress. We're going to see it. Alexandria being in there, I'm about 98% sure that we're going to have Sarah Smith is going to be in there. Adrienne Bell, one of our other candidates, was just endorsed by former President Obama. She's doing great. We're going to get these people in there. We're going to make changes, or we're going to at least make it really, really difficult for the establishment politicians to continue pushing their agenda. Once we bring this stuff out into the light, man, it's all going to be downhill from there. Sorry.
Absolutely. Kelly, I'm definitely not talking about Alexandria. I'm not. I had her on my show. I genuinely like her. That's not who I'm referring to at all. You can PM me if you want, but I'm not going to call her out. But yeah, my point was just to look into candidates deeper and say that we can't be presumptuous someone is progressive because they say they are. So are you guys going to be having any kind of debate, you against the winning Democrat and Republican and Libertarian?
Yeah. I really, really hope so, because the front runner, actually, the election results, I've got an app on my phone that pull them up. The person who is currently winning in the primary on the Republican side has been invited to quite a few debates, and he's never shown up, not to one of them. The Democrats, all the candidates on the Democratic side showed up. Most of the Republican candidates showed up. But the guy who's the front runner, the guy who's already had 2 FEC violations that he had to pay fines for, one of his campaigns, I think it was 2008, $20,000 disappeared from his campaign fund and wound up in his personal account. When he was a sitting senator in Tennessee, he took $10,000 from a solar company, never reported the check to the IRS. Somebody brought that up recently, and he says, "Oh, geez, we forgot about the $10,000 check. I'll amend my taxes." He doesn't turn up to anything. And I thought, well, this is strange. Why wouldn't he want to come out and be introduced to voters? It's because he doesn't have to. He's already got all the money. He's already got all this stuff going. He doesn't even turn out. He doesn't even care about that kind of stuff, right? He'll go out to football games and stuff, people he already knows, and he'll shake the hands and take selfies and all this kind of stuff. But you look at his website, there's nothing about policy. There's nothing about what he stands for. None of that. So I would love to get him to come to a debate. I don't think that he could hold a candle to anything that we're talking about. One of the other front runners actually on live TV said that climate change was fake news and a Chinese hoax in front of the world and everybody. And he was one of the front runners. I'll give credit. He actually came, right? But he said that. And it's that kind of stuff, because whenever they say it in front of other people who are going to challenge them on it and get ridiculed for it, that knocks them down a peg, and they don't like that. So I'd love to be in a debate. I don't think he'll turn up. I think the Democratic candidate definitely will. They're a lot more forthcoming when it comes to voter outreach and everything. But I would love to be in a debate. I've had a couple different people offer to do televised debates, and we'll put up that whoever wins the Republican primary is going to be there. And so if they don't show up, it makes them look bad. And I don't necessarily like doing that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's like, it's not a bad idea, right? But,
that's awesome. Well, that's really interesting. I totally agree. I think there's 2 reasons. They do fear, the less they say, the less trouble they're in, and the less they're accountable they're going to have to be. But then also, I think they're so damn presumptuous they're going to win that they don't have to do anything. They have the name recognition and the money, and so it'll be interesting to see who wins today. So when you were there today, were you at your district polling place?
Well, I traveled around a little bit to a different couple polling stations, but I had some volunteers that were nice enough to pick up some flyers and go stand out at their polls in the rain. So, I figured we get more coverage that way. So I just said, hey, go to your local polling station. If you haven't voted already, vote. And then stand outside, because polling stations around here normally pretty close to your house. It's convenient for people. And I went around and I catch people as they're leaving and just say, hey, I'm the independent candidate. I'll be on the ballot in November. I'd appreciate your support. And people really appreciate that. I love getting out and doing voter outreach, meeting people, finding out what's on people's minds. And the funny thing is, as much division in this country as there is now, people feel like they're off in their own box. They think that they're in their own area and nobody else agrees with them. But I can tell you, I've talked to thousands of people, and almost everybody says the same thing, right? Healthcare, corruption, better wages. A couple things are tossed in outside that spectrum, but almost everybody fears the same thing, and everybody wants it fixed. I think we can work together. I think we can do a lot better in this country than we've been doing. We can give a little, we can take a little, and then we can fix these problems by working together.
Right on. If there's something you want to leave our viewers with, something for them to hopefully recommend you to people in Tennessee, or, throw you a few dollars, or send your website, to some people, what do you want to leave our viewers with tonight?
Oh, geez. There's so much. I can keep hope, right? This isn't going to be fixed overnight, but there are people who want to fix this. There are people that are taking part. And if you want to see things get better, take part, help out. Look up brandnewcongress.org. All of our candidates are on there. If you have one close to you, great. Volunteer for them. Help them out. They need your help. If you can't volunteer, donate. If you don't have anybody in your area, find somebody you like and offer to phone bank for them. We all have to grind through this together. this will change with time. This will get better. And you know what? If you're not scared of talking in front of people, run for office yourself. If you're a progressive, if you have the interests of the American people in mind, step up and do that. If you would like to help me in my endeavor to win this election here and to help invest in Americans again, you can go to Whitmire2018.com. That's Whitmire spelled WHITMIRE, and you can donate to my campaign there. You can refer my website to people in Tennessee if you know them. But please help spread the message. I know the Justice Democrats are another group. They have a lot more candidates, so you might have somebody in your area. But take part. You know, don't just sit back and let this stuff happen. Call your representatives. Go to their offices. A lot of representatives say we never hear from people. They say if they get one phone call, it means 1,000 people are angry about something. And if one person shows up at their office, 10,000 people are angry about something. So be that person that represents the other 10,000 people. Show up. Take part. Vote. I know it doesn't feel like it does any good sometimes, but do it. You know, we only end this if we all work together, if we stay stronger than them and we last longer than them. And I think that we can do it. Again, I'm 35 years old. I'm going to be in this for a long time.
Hell yeah. Oh, I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. They know me well. I'm right by the Capitol. I'm like, they know my voice. They know the sound of my shoes. They're like, oh shit, here comes Joy. But yeah, and also, guys, you guys know I preach this 24/7, but there's so much talk about 2020, and we have, you know, people like Mark right now who we talk so much about 2020 and who's, you know, going to win, but we can't get anyone good in 2020 unless we have good people now, because who's going to help us get them in, and who's going to help us support, you know, their legislation? We need to focus on now. We can't keep being distracted by, you know, the pretty colors. It has to come down to right now. We have less than 100 days till the general, and we have 20 more primaries. So we got to get focused, and we got to get these Bernie-crats, progressives, and all these people who fight for us in office. So it looks like one of my teammates did put your website in the comments, so that's good. Thank you so much for joining us. You're amazing. I knew I was going to like you right away just because you have kind eyes and a nice smile. And that's usually, people tease me about that, but like that means something to me. I don't vote for assholes unless they're only assholes when it comes to like the Dems or something, like the establishment. You can be an asshole, but like not to people. So thank you once more for joining us. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with some more candidates at 9 p.m. Eastern. So best of luck, Mark. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, and thank you for spreading the message for all of our candidates. This is how we win. We've got to get the word out, and you're part of that solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.